Day 4. What could possibly go wrong?
You were the first thing that I thought of when I thought I drank you off my mind. When I get lost in the liquor, you're the only one I find. If I did the things I ought to.
Probably not going to need the bibs today, but because I'm irresponsible and didn't put my seat down last night, I have a wet seat. This day started off a little bit differently compared to some of the other days. I wasn't really rushing out the door because there wasn't much to rush out the door for, if I'm being honest. You know, I still hadn't figured out the electronics issues that were ailing my boat, and the weather conditions had gotten unfavorable the prior evening and were unfavorable again that morning. And in my mind, that seemed like a really good opportunity to have a slow morning and sip some coffee on the shores there at Pine Beach. All right, guys, so I haven't really done the best job of filming this video series up to this point. Admittedly, we've been just messing around with a bunch of issues that you guys have already heard me talk about. So I haven't done a ton of B-roll and a ton of just capturing what's been going on. When I first got up here, I really wanted to make sure that I was able to put a fish on film kind of right away before I really jumped into too much and kind of focused on that. And it was a little tough the first couple days. And then we started getting on them and it was pouring rain and we just weren't able to really film a ton of that stuff, unfortunately. An absolute banger day. So I haven't talked about a lot of the gear I wanted to talk about. I haven't talked about Pine Beach hardly at all. So what we're gonna focus on today is mostly a fishing vlog here, and we're gonna talk about some gear. So one of the pieces of gear that I'm really excited for this year is this right here. This is the new Net Buddy hook out. Big, beautiful, bulky piece of overbuilt equipment, like everything Matt does. Overbuilt, super high quality, stainless and aluminum components on this thing. And what I really like about it so far is the length of the shaft here. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. The length of the shaft here, because it keeps your hands away from the fish. Obviously, sometimes fish get hooked deep and you're not able to use a tool like this. And the way the first 2 muskies I caught ate the blades, they ate them so deep that I ended up having to cut hooks. I'll overlay a photo of the 3 different baits there with the hooks cut, all Musky Frenzy Stagger 8/9s. And I wasn't able to use this, and then obviously the fish we got yesterday, she spit the hooks as I got her in the net, so I didn't get to use it. I've used it a little bit at home. I really like it, especially with bucktails, and when they're hooked in the corner of the mouth, it's real easy to kind of clamp onto this here. Clamp onto the hook, give it a turn, and then pop it out. So super, super nice, heavy duty, beefy piece of equipment here from Net Buddy, and as I mentioned, everything Matt does is just super high quality. So I want to touch on that. Hopefully we'll get to use it a little bit today. And that's really all I have for right now. I'm just kind of sitting in the boat, watching my graphs here, making sure that everything's gonna hopefully work as intended, and drinking coffee, because mornings are for coffee and contemplation, and we don't have a major until 10, so I didn't really see the value in getting out super early today. Plus I was tired. So anyway, we're gonna sip on some coffee here for a minute, and then we're gonna hit the road and probably go explore some new stuff today. Bluebird conditions, it'll provide for good opportunity to visibly see reefs before hitting them with the boat, and map out some weed beds during the slow periods, and then I'll hit some of the juicy spots, some of my A+ spots during that major during the middle of the day. And that'll probably be our best opportunity today. Unfortunately, I think clouds are supposed to roll in later, but we'll see. Anyway, enough yakking. We're gonna get to the action. As I departed from Pine Beach, my goal for this day was a little bit different from prior days. I was going to focus on learning a brand new section of the lake really well, and that would involve doing a bunch of mapping. Just given the unfavorable weather conditions, it didn't feel like I needed to rush out and get a line in the water. It felt like my time was better spent breaking down water, looking for spots that I would consider A spots, if you will, and then coming back during the prime windows to fish those
new locations to try and figure out, you know, which areas may be productive. And on this particular day, just given the circumstances, the only real prime window we were really going to get, at least in my mind, was that midday major. So just given the conditions, what I'm doing here, guys, is I'm just swinging in and mapping a few spots on my way down to where I plan to start my day. Because we don't have the major until 10 and it's bluebird and flat calm right now, I just figured now's a good time to check out a few different areas and do some auto charting and drop some waypoints. So that's what we're doing right now. Just driving around real slow with the motor trimmed up. When I start thinking things are getting sketchy, I kill the prop. Just make sure we don't break it. And then I'm often standing up and looking out ahead of the boat to make sure we ain't gonna hit nothing. Always gets a little sketchy in these kind of boulder patches out here. But what I like to do is make that real wide pass first and scan 100 feet to the side with my side imaging to see kind of what's going on down there. And here we have a beautiful boulder pile. Tops out at 6 feet. Juicy. And what I'm doing is I'm just dropping waypoints on the edges of it. One side of the boulder pile, the other side, so I know where to keep my boat around it and how far off to keep my boat when I actually come back and fish it. I never see anybody fishing this spot. And it's got to hold fish. I mean, it looks unbelievable down there. Now we're getting it a little tighter, which always makes me a little nervous. I'll show you what this looks like here. See that? That right there is the juice. Burn blades right over the top of that. See how that looks on there. I'll zoom in here. The juice. So then we're coming off the edge now. You can see the rocks start to stop. They start to stop right there. Mark, waypoint. Just like that. Got it perfectly mapped out, and what I'll do then is I'll take my boat and I'll work it like this. Out and around, all that stuff. Hopefully that's focusing okay for you guys. So, even if your lake is mapped, you should do that anyway, because it will teach you so much about how the spots lay down and what would be considered the juicy spot on the spot, the A spot, if you will. The better you know your lake and the spots you're fishing, the better your chances for success. And now, because I just drove over the top of that, I'll probably wait at least a few hours, especially on rocks. Weeds I'm less concerned about. Weeds, the fish kind of just move away from the boat, if you will. Rocks, they seem to push off the structure. And I doubt there's a fish on this, just given the conditions right now anyway. I doubt they'll be sitting up on this right now, but sometimes the big ones will sun themselves on reefs. So it's one of those things where you try to write the book on best practices and typical patterns, and it's a fruitless effort, because these damn things will do whatever they want whenever they want. They're the apex predator. They don't give a shit. And as much as we try to predict their movements and activity, like I said, it's just a fruitless effort. So, all right, we'll catch up with you guys once we're ready to start fishing here. This killing me.
Thinking I won't see that if I cross that line, then they bury me. Well, I just might find I'm killing time for eternity.
While I was being productive out on the water during this map work, it couldn't help but feel like I was just killing time waiting for the major. And when I finally did start fishing, in conditions like this, I like to focus my attention on weeds. And the main reason for that is when conditions are calm, the cabbage stalks will stand upright and it creates very predictable cover for the muskies. They can relate to the edge, they can swim in and out of the weed bed at free will, and there's not a lot of commotion. When the wind picks up, the cabbage stalks move in the current, right? They'll bend over and they'll flutter, and it creates very unpredictable cover. So oftentimes then the muskies will push off onto adjacent rock areas, which they use that current then that's bashing against the rocks and pushing bait fish in there and creating that kind of turmoil under the surface. They use that to their advantage to hunt and feed on stunted bait fish and whatnot. But given the conditions, our goal was to focus on weed beds. And through the first few spots that we fished this morning, really the only thing that was willing to show itself were pike. And it created for some interesting boat side interactions. And you'll hear people say it all the time that pike don't figure eight, but in my experience, that hasn't proven to be true. As the morning progressed, my electronics issues persisted, and as the major drew near, I knew fishing a new section of the lake that I was going to need these electronics, so I attempted one last fix, hoping that would solve my issues. And with the major rolling in, I decided to move to a spot that I had mapped earlier that morning. It was a good combination of weeds, rocks, hard to soft bottom transitions. It had kind of everything you wanted, adjacency to deep water, and it just felt like it was going to give me the best opportunity at a bite during the major, considering the conditions we were facing. Stay pinned, stay pinned. She ain't hooked the best, but it's also not the worst. Stay pinned, stay pinned. Oh yeah, stay pinned. I got her. Sweet. And this may be a good opportunity to try this. Easy, girl. Easy, girl. All right, that'll work. Sweet. Holy cow. Hi friends, we hope you're enjoying the show. If you like what we do and want to support us, check out the affiliate links down in the description below. And if you're feeling really generous, check out the YouTube Super Thanks option. All proceeds are reinvested back into the channel so we can continue to try and deliver the best content possible. Thank you so much for all the support. Now let's get back to the action. All right, guys, we just put a really nice fish in the bag here. If you can't tell, it is bluebird, it is flat calm. It's hotter than hell out here. It's gotta be like 85 degrees. And I wasn't sure if we were gonna be able to make it happen. We're right in the middle of the major, and every single fish I've caught, except for the 46 from yesterday, has been on a moon window. So this one fired up, came off this weed bed, shooting in. She was a little lazy behind the bait, and as soon as I brought it in that first turn, she really kicked and she started chasing it. I knew I wasn't gonna get her there, so I kept it hot and pulled it away from her in that kind of outside corner of my oval, and then brought it up and hung it, and she just absolutely did what she is supposed to do, right? And
clobbered it out there. She ended up getting beak hooked, so I kind of played her out a little bit, but super nice fish, really skinny, long, lean, probably a little over 40 inches the more I look at her here, but classic Eagle Lake up and comer here. So we're gonna pull her out, show her to you, and we're gonna get back to casting. She's super feisty and green. There she is. Super long and lean one. Super duper long and lean. But a super cool fish. Oh, they're out here, get some stills. Sweet. One more look. There she is. Let's get her back. Try and get an underwater release shot for you guys here today. She is. She's gonna take no time at all. She's super fired up. She goes. Super cool one. Pretty spots. Awesome. It seems like if you can get them into the figure 8 or to chase blades in general, they are going to eat it out in the 8s. So just keep them hot, keep those blades working super fast, small blades burning them. I actually show it to you again here. You guys saw this all year last year. The Bloody Nickels pattern. Huntsy tail bangers, 7/8. Awesome, awesome bait. Grinds super, super hard for a small blade, and they love it, as you can tell, just like they loved it last year. So, all right, put all this stuff away, get back to casting. Hell of a fish, considering the conditions. I mean, you just couldn't ask for a more textbook figure 8 eat. It was everything you go up to Canada for, right? You get that fish to come in. It doesn't really want to commit in that first turn, and it takes 2 to tango, and you go through the whole dance and get her to eat in that outside corner, and it was just perfect. There's nothing quite like the feeling of watching them eat it there and setting back on their face like that. So I was pretty happy at this point, you know, a lot of relief given the conditions. But unfortunately for me, you know, I'm not a professional. I will never claim to be at this point. I'm just a weekend warrior that takes this sport probably a little bit too seriously at times, if I'm being honest with you. And because of this, you know, I have weaknesses in my game. We all do, if we're being honest about it. And one of my weaknesses is after I catch a fish on a spot, I don't take the subsequent casts as seriously as I'm finishing out the spot. And maybe it's the adrenaline, maybe it's the relief from putting a fish in the bag, I don't really know. But for whatever reason, it's cost me over the years, and it cost me again on this particular day. No. Ah, dang it. Dang it. Dang it. Dang it, dang it, dang it, dang it, dang it. So a little bit of a heartbreaker there. Not sure what else I could have really done different on that particular fish. When you watch the footage back, she clearly turns perfectly away. The bait's in the corner of the mouth. I set. Theory I should have had her. Maybe she was just short striking the back, banger, attachment on the rear treble of the Huntsy tail. I'm not exactly sure what played out there. But regardless, she caught me sleeping. You know, like I mentioned, it's an area of my game I need to work on. So duly noted, we'll learn from it and we'll be better next time. But now after that fish, you know, the major was ending and I decided to get back to my map work. And as I mentioned earlier in this video, I really like to learn small sections of the lake really well so I can find those A spots that are in close proximity to one another. So once you're on a pattern with fish, if you hit a major or you're coming into the last light in the end of legal fishing on Eagle, you can hit a bunch of spots in really close proximity to one another really efficiently. And during this mapping session, I found some pretty good weeds that were kind of tucked out of the wind. And at this point in the day, the wind had picked up a little bit as the sun was coming up, air temps were warming, and those wind currents were picking up. And as I mentioned earlier, when you map weeds, a lot of times the fish don't push out of the weeds, they just move to adjacent sections of the weed bed to find cover and sanctuary away from your boat. So generally you can fish weeds almost like right away after you map them. So I decided to whip around and hit this spot because the wind had picked up pretty heavily in other areas, and I knew at least I'd be able to have good boat control in this area. And you know, despite having no biometric influencers in our favor at this point in the day, we were actually able to eke out another bite. Stay down. No, 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 no. Oh, I couldn't get her head down. Oh. Oh, I knew she was gonna spit the damn hook. That sucks. All right, guys, a little midday update here. Out doing some exploring right now because the major's over and the sun is high and hot right now. So doing some map work and whatnot, so I have stuff to try out the next couple days and maybe even this evening. But 1 for 3 today, which is a little disappointing. I've lost every muskie that I've hooked out on the cast, and the 2 I lost today, both of them when I looked as they were head shaking, basically they were hooked in the bottom jaw. And I think what's happening is, and I've had this happen before on my Hunsey tails, is on these bangers, this little dangle blade off the back here, I think what ends up happening is it elongates the profile of this bait, right? Behind the hook, if that kind of makes sense. So what ends up happening is a lot of times on bucktails, they'll come up and they'll just grab the back hook when it's out on the cast. Well, because this is elongated, I think they're kind of short striking it even more, and I'm not getting good hooks in them. They're not exactly inhaling the bait and getting those trebles kind of back behind their teeth a little bit more, not quite towards their tongue area, but back a little bit further. So both of those fish were hooked in the lower jaw, and as they started head shaking, I mean, there's just nothing you can do about it at that point, especially the second one. The second one, it was just sitting and kind of gliding on top of the water, and I knew that that fish was gonna absolutely shake that bait, which is no good. But neither one of them were giants, so it's not that big of a deal, but they're still fun to catch. So it would have been cool to get them in the boat and show them to you and check out a few more Eagle Lake specimens. But anyway, like I mentioned, just out here kind of cruising around, exploring some new stuff. So I think that's probably what we're gonna do the rest of the day, is try new stuff all the way up until that dark window. So anyway, I'm done yakking for right now, and we will check back in with you guys in a little bit. Hopefully we'll have a fish in the bag. If not, we'll probably be doing a recap at the end of the day here, because conditions are awful and the major's after dark and you can't fish after dark on Eagle. So odds are against us, but we're gonna keep grinding. All right, see ya. The rest of the day was, well, musky fishing. Unfortunately, it was musky fishing. You know, the fish kind of stopped showing themselves, and I eventually ended up switching from blades to jerk baits just to try and see some fish. I knew they probably weren't gonna bite, but if I could at least locate them as I was working through mapping new spots and fishing familiar places, at least I would have something to come back on, right? But while I continued to cast and map and work spots throughout the rest of the day, I kind of knew deep down inside that my best opportunity was going to be last light. Topwater is my absolute favorite way to catch muskies, and it's even better when they put on a show like that. I mean, that wake was so sick, and the video just doesn't do it justice. The way her fins pushed out of the water and she waked up behind it, and it was a really nice fish. But unfortunately, she didn't eat because that's musky fishing. And unfortunately, that would be the last opportunity we had on this particular day. All right, guys, that's a wrap on today. I'm gonna keep this short and sweet because the mosquitoes are eating me alive out here. But I did want to touch on, I switched from the Frenzy blades to the Banger, and the main reason for that is the Banger had 2 nickel blades plus the Banger blade that's a nickel pattern. And with the bluebird conditions, those metallic blades emit a ton of flash down there in the water. Plus, I've had better luck kind of downsizing my blade profile on bluebird days, and it paid off today. 1 for 3, wish we could have got the other 2. And then talk about a sick top water wake to end the night. That always gets your blood pumping and whatnot. But yeah, great day out here on the water. I'm gonna wrap it up right now. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next spot. But when I look back on the day collectively, it felt like a major victory. I got to learn a brand new section of the lake. We went 1 for 3 in those conditions, and I only casted probably 20% of the day, primarily during the major and a little bit before it, and kind of the evening hours up to last light. So when I look back on it, it feels like a major success given those conditions. And to top it all off, I was able to fix my electronics issues. But you are going to have to wait until the next video to learn how I did that. And when I say it out loud and how simple the fix was, we're all going to think I am an idiot. But anyway, tomorrow's a new day. And even though I was building some momentum here, Mother Nature had different plans for me.